What happens when you drive over 30,000 miles without changing your oil because you didn't know that your car needed oil changes? I just don't understand the words that came out of my mouth. I can't relate to them whatsoever, but unfortunately that is what has happened to this 1.5 liter Honda turbo engine out of a 2018 CRV. The person bought the cheapest used CRV they could with about 120,000 miles on it, and they fed it gasoline and nothing else until it would barely pull itself up the driveway. So yeah, it got an engine replacement instead of oil changes. So today we're going to tear down a running, albeit poorly, engine to see just how bad neglect can get. Honda's L15 has been around for quite some time. There are several different iterations of the L15. The naturally aspirated version of this engine is actually quite good, but the turbo version of this engine is sometimes quite good. I have seen them go 200,000 miles with average maintenance and they run perfect. I've also seen them completely shot at less than 50,000 miles. And it seems that most of the calls I get for these engines are from CRVs. You can also get this engine in Civics and Accords, but for me, from my experience, the CRV is the most prolific one for failure. And I think that has something to do with the oil dilution issue that these engines, especially the early ones, faced, where oil would run past the rings when these engines weren't allowed to get to operating temperature. It would enter the crankcase, dilute the oil, and wreak all sorts of havoc on the oiling system. Premature bearing failure, low compression. I've seen a lot of different issues with these, and it is usually down to driving style. That being said, taking one of these engines and going 30,000 miles or more without changing the oil is, we're going to find out. Now, to answer the power and torque question, which I often get asked, the CRV makes 192 horsepower and 179 pound-feet of torque. I'd rather have a K-Series. The first thing I'd like to do is see if this engine, I know it turns over, but let's see how it feels when we turn it over. Well, it has some semblance of compression. I don't hear anything loose inside. Uncle Rodney must be sleeping. The next first thing I'd like to do is remove the coils so we can get the plugs out. That one's really unhappy. So the plugs don't look terrible. Nothing's bent or smashed. They are physically all right. I can't really tell how many miles are on them. And they're all pretty even colored. This one's a little darker than this one. They like to run away on this table. But I don't know if we're going to have malice in the combustion palace. Well, as you can tell, this is a turbo engine. It's not on the engine. It's actually right here. And it's partially dismantled. This is how I got the engine. And it's bad. It's real bad. Let's take a look. So the turbo is dismantled. This part's kind of boring. Whatever. But this, it is missing the impeller nut, which was found in the airbox. That doesn't go there. And when you spin this, it kind of moves. Like the relation between, it's not really connected because the shaft has snapped. Let's get a better look at this. You don't want to have that. That's not one of those 360-degree bearings. That's no bearings left. And when that happens, oh, look at the oil coming out of it. The wheel gets destroyed by hitting the housing. And the shaft is snapped. That's why the nut came off, I suspect. It's bad. Normal for engines that don't get good oil changes to blow turbos prematurely. Next, we're going to pull the intake, but before we can get the intake manifold off, we have some hoses to get rid of. This is an aftermarket hose. I don't know quite what went on here, but they had to replace it for some reason. So we'll just go ahead and carefully, it's a little tough there. Maybe we'll get one off the other side here. Oh, it came right off. We have a couple more hose in the way. This one's really fighting me.
Wish there was a better option.
No, let's just take it off the other side. Look at that. Much better. We just have the solenoid here, which I'm going to undo these lines and drape them across and pull them with the intake. Just like so. There are a couple more coolant hose over here. Man, I'm kind of hurting the hose doing that. This is not the right way to pull a hose. Look at that. And now we can unbolt the intake manifold. Let's take a look down the intake ports, and pretty slimy and chunky. It's not great. I don't see anything bent or destroyed though. The next step is to remove some of the stuff that's going to block the valve cover from coming off. All right, let's unbolt the valve cover and see what it looks like. I think it's time for glue. Oh, yep, that's not good. Yikes. The smell, the aroma in this garage has changed significantly since pulling that valve cover, and I must say, I don't like it. This is awful. Now, we have seen worse. We did a Q50 engine that was worse than this, but this is really not good. Everything is sludgy and slimy. I don't want to touch anything. We're going to just to take it apart, but outside of the overzealous amount of varnish and sludge, everything seems to be in place. I don't see any silver sparkles or forbidden glitter, just endless amount of sludge. Now we have a few more brackets to take off this thing. And the high pressure fuel line. Looks like it's bolted in right here. Oh, we're leaking fuel. Next, we'll unbolt the high pressure fuel pump. Well, that's pretty grungy too. Let's pull the, oh, that doesn't come out. Can't get that out. I'm not happy I touched all that. Start zipping some more stuff off. Yummy. The next thing I'd like to do is tackle the timing cover. We're going to start with the crank pulley. Now, Honda crank bolts are notoriously tight. A lot of people have really struggled with these, especially on some of the other engines. But I have a weighted socket. It's an Ingersoll Rand 19 millimeter. Usually does the job. It's not doing the job. It's going to do the job. It's going to do the job. I just had to say something, didn't I? All right, you know what? Let's get the bigger impact. It usually does it. I shouldn't have said that either. This will do it. Oh, wow. It's not doing it. All right, we're just going to try something a little different. We're going to do the exact same thing. Probably should have done that with plugs in it. I don't really like this. We're gonna try something. We're gonna basically try to shock it a little bit. It's probably not gonna do a single thing. I'm probably gonna have to get the induction heater out. And I don't have any tools to lock the crank. I could try that. I don't know if I have anything to thread into the crank. I'm just gonna hope that my compressor charges up. There we go. I'll be back in a minute. All right, fully charged compressor. Let's see what this does. Yeah. At this point, that comes right off. Before we go peeling the cover off, I'm going to remove this access inspection port. Not one that was created by a flailing rod, but one that was created by Honda themselves. And I believe the tensioner for the timing chain is behind this. This might be a little more challenging to get off than I hope. Yeah, let's do something else here. We're going to use a chisel driver for this one. And there's the tensioner. I can't really see a single thing because it's all sludgy. So we're going to give it a little spritz. Oh, it's metal. Okay, Honda techs, is this all the way extended? I kind of wiped it down so we can get a better look. I don't know what it's supposed to look like, but I'm sure there's a measurement that you can take. Next, let's get the serpentine belt tensioner. Now we can start unbolting the timing cover. Nope, we're going to do that one by hand. That wasn't that tight. What the heck, Impact? I know everyone is telling me to get a 5 amp hour battery. I get it. I've had them. They all break in like a week. And not from drops, just from vibration. Now there's a few 10 millimeter bolts. I think I'm going to have to pull this out. That doesn't want to come out, so we'll have to fight that in a minute. Some bolts to go to the pan. I think that's it. One thing I do enjoy about this engine, it's got a dipstick. It says it's dry. Let's try to get this timing cover off. They leave you nice places to pry. They're blue sized. Look at that. This side though. Okay, let's see how bad this looks in here. Oh, I got that sensor. Oh, it comes out if you just bang. Oh, that's bad. So this is actually not a sensor. This is a variable valve timing solenoid. Well, I will show you in a moment. But first, remove the other one. Nope. Oh, we're leaking. So this is the inside of the timing cover. I don't see any like wear points on it or any damage here, but it's quite varnished. This is a lot of thick sludge. So these are the variable valve timing solenoids. And historically on the teardowns we've done, they can be really good at catching things suspended in the oil. Look at that glitter. It's sparkly. It's a lot of sludge. And there's definitely some chunks of metal in there, kind of copper colored. This looks terrible. The next thing I'm going to do is slide the crank pulley back on. We're going to see if we can verify some sort of timing or if it's in time, out of time. I'll have to figure out what the timing marks are. Ooh, that was a bad sound. I don't know if this is going to be quite possible. So I looked this thing over pretty well and I did a little bit of Googling, and it looks like the timing marks line up with a miscolored chain link. not these two that are clean because I wiped those off. I don't see the painted chain link, and it could have just worn off. I don't really have a good way of verifying timing, but I can say that no matter what position I put the crank in, nothing made sense up here. I'm not a Honda tech. I don't work on these all the time, so I can't really tell you if it's in or out of time. Let's go ahead and start peeling some of the timing components off. We're going to start with the tensioner here. Ooh, it has some oomph behind it. It's fine. Everything's fine. Let's get this rail. Let's go ahead and relieve this chain, please. Oh, it's caught there. Oh, I see how it's going to be. Maybe. Can you give this to me? Well, I just broke the timing guide. Dang it. But that chain. Nice. All right, let's look at the timing components. I'm not touching them because I don't have gloves on and they're gooey. But they actually look really nice. And Honda put a groove in the center here, I guess for lubrication purposes. I don't see any issues with any of the timing components, but the timing chain tensioner is oil pressure fed, which is super normal, but it has a screen. And look at all that junk it picked up. So all of that stuff that we see on both the solenoids here and that screen, it's going to be everywhere in this engine. Next, let's get the water pump removed. I think that's all of them, except for this one back here. Now we need to carefully remove the water pump here. Oh, we're leaking lots of coolant. It's okay, we got a pan. Not a lot of coolant. It just looked worse than it was. And look, looks like it was seeping around the top part of the seal here, which is kind of odd for a location for that to happen. The water pump itself, oh, you know what? There's some dried crusties in there. This water pump, it's no good. It's a bad water pump. Now the water manifold on the back of the cylinder head. Well, it looks like the pipe is O-ringed. Well, I've successfully put it in a bind. You know what? We're just going to remove this with this. And I know what you're going to say. Well, the pipe blocks this bolt. Oh, let me do this. All right, got all the easy ones out first. That might work. Perfect. This is going to work just fine. See? Just fine. Now it is finally time to cam the cam cramps loose so we can inspect the valve train. Normally I never do things that way, but this is all pretty rough. Everything's so slimy. a little place to pry on these actually. So for as sludgy as this is, it's not terrible. All the journals look nice. All the valvetrain looks nice. I don't see any major issues here aside from its lack of cleanliness. Same story here. All the cams look pretty good. There's not a ton of wear in the journals. A little bit, but it's not bad. We've seen much worse and have much nicer looking inside of crankcase engines. Now it is time to crack the head bolts loose. I don't know how tight these are going to be. Apparently not at all. Did I forget one? That was weird. Okay, let's see what's under the head. Well, the head gasket, I think that's pretty normal for these. They have this little slit in the block, so it looks a little strange. I don't know why manufacturers are doing that, but head gasket looks good. Let's take a look at this thing. Cylinder walls look pretty good. There's a fair bit of wear on both sides, on the thrust side. That's not great. Can't tell what the center two look like. I don't see any major damage, just wear. And the cylinder head actually looks pretty good. I really can't see any issues with this. You know, this wasn't really an overheat situation that I was aware of. Maybe I'll be able to sell a cylinder head. That'd be nice. Now it is time for some science. Enough with the jokes. Ooh, that sounded... Maybe that's just rocking in the bore. Whoa. Let's take a look at the other two bores while we're here. So this is what I'm talking about, this little slit. I really don't know the advantage to this besides maybe warming up quicker and it's an emissions thing. I don't think it's worth the thin amount of material between the cylinder pressure and its neighbor, but cylinder 3 and 2, pretty good wear here. Next, we're going to rotate this thing over so we can work on the bottom end. Leaking coolant, any oil? Yep, there's some oil. Oil is kind of ploppy. Now let's see if we can get the oil filter off. Not by hand. Nope. It's been on there for a minute. Okay. There we are. Had to use the little pliers on it. We're definitely going to cut this thing open. I'll show you what the element looks like at the end. Let's unbolt this oil pan. Could have gone without that. Nice, they give you places to pry. A lot of manufacturers are just like, nah, you don't get, you get nothing. Okay, as we expected, this looks pretty, it actually looks better than I expected. Now, when the crankshaft is moving, it's hard for things to stick to it, which is why the rods look pretty decent, but anything that's stationary does not look decent. And I'll be really curious to see how much junk is caught in the pickup screen. This is gross. This is about the most sludge we've seen in an oil pan in a really long time. And as you can kind of tell, It's a little glittery. Now, it's not overwhelmingly anti-seize, but there's definitely some metallic hues here. And that is what I like to say, bad. That's just yuck. Next, we'll remove the oil pickup tube. Now we will remove the oil pump. Oh, we're leaking, and just in time for me to remove the pan. That was great timing. Before we take the oil pump apart, let's see if there's anything in the pickup tube. I'm looking at the screen in there. There's no way I'm going to get my camera in there, but no. I take that back. I can see some slivers of metal inside here on the other side of the screen, but not a lot. It's not loaded. Now we'll take the oil pump apart. One way to do it. All right, we're gonna give everything a quick bath. I'll show you what it looks like. Let's take a look at the oil pump. This housing, couple grooves. This one looks pretty good. There has definitely been some dirt in the oil that's run through here, but it doesn't look as bad as I expected. This fared rather well. All right, let's rotate the crank. It's got like a couple tight spots. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set it to where pistons are either at bottom dead center or top dead center, and we're going to unbolt all of the rod caps. These are 12.8 millimeter. All right, now we're going to rotate this to where it pushes the center two, cylinders 2 and 3 to the top. We'll leave those in place, and we'll get the main caps unbolted after I pop loose this rear main seal plate. And now we'll pluck the crank right out. Let's go ahead and knock these things out. Let's start off with the rod bearings. They are all down to copper. Every single one of these is worn through the first layer of the bearing, which is, I would say, pretty common for fuel wash situation or high miles. Now, this is not a low mileage engine, but it is also an engine that suffered extremely long oil change. Well, it really didn't get its oil changed for a long time. But these look more like BMW S85 bearings after 80,000 miles than Honda bearings. And we get to the rods and pistons. The oil control rings are nice and freed up. They're not all clogged. All the rings move pretty well on the pistons. Not a ton of skirt wear here. No signs of pistons hit valves, which I didn't think that was going to be the case. Everything looks, I mean, it doesn't look great. It doesn't look terrible, though. There's no acute damage to any of this stuff. It just looks like a high mileage engine, except for the bearings. And then the main bearings are pretty chewed up. So I think all of the silvery sparkles we found in this engine are from the bearing shells. You can see some of these mains pretty rough. but somehow the crankshaft actually looks decent. Now it's going to need to be polished before it's used, if it gets reused. I don't know what has value out of this engine. This is the first one of these I've done in probably 2 or 3 years, and everything has changed since the last one. The oil filter is terrible. You can see it's partially collapsed. This oil filter did its best, man, but it's full of slime. It was probably bypassing oil at the end there. That is just not what a filter is supposed to look like, but it's not loaded up with a bunch of metal, which is nice. Now for the boring part. Sorry, I couldn't resist. So every cylinder has pretty similar wear. A little bit more right there. Let's go over to the other side. I don't know if this is going to need machine work or just cleaned up. Dingleberry hone. What do you guys think? One of the things I like the least about modern cars are maintenance minders. They don't take a sample of your engine oil and let you know how good or bad it is or how many miles you have left, as if you were to send it to a lab for an oil analysis. They work off of an algorithm instead, a pre-programmed algorithm based off of miles, off of time, engine hours, idle speed, average RPM, temperature. There's a whole bunch of factors that go into figuring out what your display is going to tell you. But it is pre-programmed based on ideal situations, and ideal situations is subjective to the manufacturer, not the owner of the vehicle. So I always tell people, change it based on miles, and that changes based on use case. But 30,000 miles, too much on anything ever. Now, if this person that owned this CRV had at least paid attention to the maintenance minder, which I'm sure that vehicle has, they might not have been in this situation so quickly. I don't recommend following those to the T because they're usually too far of an interval. But this person ignored everything and just drove it until it barely ran. And it cost them a lot more than any oil change would have. Now, a lot of times people claim that oil changes are expensive, and they are getting more expensive, but nothing compares to the cost of engine replacement. And I know most people don't think about this, but if you replace an engine, you have to put oil in it before you start it up with a new engine. So there's really no incentive to deferred maintenance here if you're going to keep your car long enough for something like this to happen. Now, I hope this person learned their lesson here, and I have to say one thing. I am kind of impressed with how this engine tolerated this type of neglect. We've seen a lot of engines that haven't got their oil changed regularly, and there is much more damage. And this one, it's not great. Now, there are a lot of people that would be wanting to try to clean this out. They would be tempted to try to run engine flush through this and call it good when the engine oil came out clean after running it. And I've actually seen videos of this exact type of vehicle that nobody changed the oil in, and they flushed the engine out and it ran great afterwards. But flushing all of the junk out of it is one thing, but there's missing material on the bearing surfaces. And anytime you have that, you have a reduction in oil pressure and the likelihood that you're going to have future problems much sooner than you normally would. Premature failure is what I'm trying to say. So yes, you can probably clean all this stuff out, but you can't slide bearings in it without cracking the whole thing apart, which is why if you come across a vehicle that has poor maintenance history, or you pull a valve cover and it looks like this, don't think that you're not going to put an engine in it. Now, some engines, again, you go to clean them out and they're just fine for a long time, but there's no guarantee because you don't know what those bearings look like. So this engine has a ton of good parts, surprisingly. So if you'd like to buy any parts out of this engine or anything else I've torn down, I'm going to leave our email in the video description. You can also go to Importapart.com and peruse our inventory. It's full of used car parts. I really hope you enjoyed this video. As always, I love all the comments, all the feedback, and even the criticism. I love it all, and I'll catch you on the next one.